Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this video. If you remember a while back, I did a clip on the timeline regarding scholars. So what I thought I'd redo it again. This time, better quality sound, inshallah, with my Blue Yeti microphone. So here goes. So this is basically a video to do with the timeline of scholars. Because sometimes, we hear about scholars in talks and we might read about them, but we don't really know in our minds exactly where these scholars came in history. So if we look at this timeline, this is a timeline at the bottom that represents the Hijri calendar, and at the top the Gregorian. Hijri calendar basically means from the time of migration. Alright, so what I'll put is MIG, migration. So this is the migration. So when the Prophet ﷺ, he migrated from Mecca to Medina, and then the years, the calendar actually started off from that date. And then on top you have the Gregorian calendar. Okay, so you have 8th century, 9th century, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, etc. all the way to the end. Right, so we actually come about here. So if that's us there, okay, that's us. And let's fill the rest in then. So we have the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ time, roughly, it's about there. Okay, so it passed away in the year 10th year after Hijrah. Anyone who saw the Prophet ﷺ, met the Prophet ﷺ, is known as a companion. The companions' era roughly ended about here, about the year 100 after Hijrah. Okay, so let me just shade that in. Okay, so the companion was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Anyone who wasn't at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, who came afterwards and didn't meet the Prophet ﷺ, then you call them a Tabi'i. Okay, so let me actually put in the name. So you have Sahabi, which basically means a companion, and then you have the next one, which is a Tabi'i. Tabi'i came this time. So the Tabi'in roughly era is about there, I would say. About there. Actually, a bit more. Maybe about there. Okay, so this is the Tabi'in era. So you can see they overlap into the Sahaba era. They met the Sahaba. This is known as the Tabi'i era. So if I just put there TAB, Tabi'i era, the followers, the predecessors. Okay, so there was roughly about 150, 160. Those who came after 150, 160 are not really the Tabi'i. And then you have those who came after them. So the ones who came after them are known as the Tabi'i. Tabi'i. Okay, so those are the ones who didn't meet the Sahaba. They actually met the ones in green. Okay, so they actually, let me draw a line here. They're roughly, I would say, about there maybe. Okay, so that, okay, different. That's the Tabi'i there. Okay, so you got the Tabi'i there. Just put T Tabi'i. Okay, so these are what we know as the golden era. The golden era of scholars. Ideally, obviously, if we could make a map and we could show scholars individually, but that would take quite a long time. So this is just a rough overview. So you can imagine how many years are between us and the golden era. Anyway, after this, you had different eras of scholars. The scholars who you know as the four madhabs, like the likes of Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, they actually came here. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he actually lived in this era. Okay, that's when he lived. Imam Malik actually lived in this era, a bit longer. Imam Shafi'i actually didn't meet Imam Abu Hanifa. He lived in this era, so to there. And then Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, he actually lived from about here all the way to about there. Yeah, roughly about there. Okay, so that's the era of the four madhabs that we know that developed later on and became very structured schools of thought for fiqh. Anyway, let's carry on. So, okay, let's just look at some scholars now. So, Imam Bukhari, let's say, where did Imam Bukhari come? Imam Bukhari actually came over here. There. That's where Imam Bukhari came. Okay, let's look at another scholar. Imam Muslim was roughly at the same time. Imam, as you've heard, Tirmidhi, a lot of times a hadith is quoted in Tirmidhi. This was roughly at the same time as well. Imam Abu Dawood, again, roughly at the same time there. And Nasa'i, they were all roughly at the same time. Ibn Majah, etc. Some other scholars you might have heard of, maybe Imam Tabari. Imam Tabari, he actually came here. This is Imam Tabari, put a T there for Tabari. Imam Tabari came there, famous tafsir of Tabari. Imam Tahawi, you might have heard of Imam Tahawi. Imam Tahawi was roughly at the same time as well, so he was also Tahawi. So he came there, Egypt. You also have other scholars that came a bit later on as well. So maybe you've heard of Imam Bayhaqi. Imam Bayhaqi actually came over here. Put a B there, Imam Bayhaqi. So famous scholar. You also have in that same era, and he was roughly, in the era, the Arabian Peninsula around there. And you have Imam Ibn Hazm. Ibn Hazm, he came roughly about this era as well. So Hazm, and he was in Spain. Ibn Hazm. Imam Ibn Abdul Barr. Okay, so you got Ibn Abdul Barr. And put a B for Barr Ibn Abdul Barr. He came roughly in this era as well. So you had these scholars in this era and many more. Okay, another scholar maybe you've probably heard of is Imam Al-Ghazali. Imam Ghazali, he came over here, so he came after them. G for Ghazali. And his teacher Imam Al-Haramain. So he came roughly there as well. Okay, so let's look at the 6th century now, or the 600s rather. So in the 600, right, just before the 600, you actually had, if anyone is familiar with Imam Al-Marghinani, okay, so M for him, Marghinani, who wrote the book Al-Hidayah, famous Hanafi fiqh text. So he was roughly around here. Imam Kasani was about here as well. Okay, in the next year, you have Imam An-Nawawi, rahimahullah. So Imam Nawawi actually came in this era. Imam Nawawi, Imam Rafi'i just came before him. Rafi'i, the famous Shafi scholars who wrote famous texts. So Rafi came first, then Nawawi came after. So this was a very famous era. Then you had Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, who came in this era. Okay, so Ibn Taymiyyah, you had the famous Imam Dhahabi. Imam Dhahabi came in this era as well. So you had him over there. You also had Imam Ibn Qayyim, Q for Ibn Qayyim. He came in this era as well. You had the famous Imam of Tafsir, Imam Ibn Kathir, K for Kathir, Ibn Kathir came there as well. Okay, so he was in that era. And also in the 8th century, or in the 800s rather, you had famous scholars such as Imam Ibn Humam, famous Hanafi scholar in that era as well. You had Imam Ibn Hajar. If you heard of Ibn Hajar, Hajar, famous tafsir, commentaries he has on Sahih Bukhari and other famous books. So Ibn Hajar is there. Let me write that a bit more clear. So put Hajar, or just actually just put H. Hajar, Ibn Hajar was there, and there were some other famous scholars. As you can see, I'm trying to make it as concise, but at the same time trying to make the video not too long as well. Hopefully what I'll try to do is maybe in the future I can dedicate an entire video just on one or two scholars, about their life and things that you can learn from them, or maybe some of their books. Okay, in the 900s, you have Imam Suyuti. Okay, so Imam Sakhawi is here as well. So you had these two contemporaries, and then you also had others, Imam Ibn Hajar al-Haythami, Ibn Tulun, who also were at this time. Right, in the next century, you had scholars such as you had Mullah Ali Qari, famous scholar Mullah Ali Qari, written many books. He was in this time as well. You had Al-Imam Al-Laqani. Okay, so you had Imam Al-Laqani, who is also a famous scholar as well, Maliki scholar. At-Talmasani, Al-Manawi. Okay, all these scholars, Shafi scholar Manawi, Talmasani, Maliki scholar, they also come in this era as well. Okay, in the next era you have scholars such as Imam al-Zurqani. Okay, Zurqani, famous Maliki scholar. You have Imam al-Ajluni. Okay, if we move to the next era, you have Imam Ibn Abidin. Okay, so Ibn Abidin for Ibn Abidin. You have Al-Imam Ad-Dasuqi. So if you've heard of Imam Ad-Dasuqi, well, he came over here. Okay, D for Dasuqi. You have Al-Imam Al-Zabidi, famous linguist. Zabidi, he came here as well. You also had notable scholars such as Imam Shawkani. Shawkani came in this era as well. And there's others as well. But inshallah, we'll try to mention maybe them in the future. Okay, in the next century, you had scholars such as Al-Imam Al-Abdul Hayy Laknawi. So put L for Abdul Hayy Laknawi from India. You also had Imam Sheikh Al-Qanuji. Okay, so Siddiq Hassan Al-Qanuji, Q for that, famous contemporary was. You also had Al-Alusi, which is the famous Mufassir. Then you had the other Alusi, which is his nephew. You also have Abdul Rahman Mubarak Puri, who's also a famous scholar in India, who wrote the commentary on Tirmidhi, Tuhfat al-Ahwadhi. Besides that, you have Imam Ahmad Shakir, his brother Mahmud Shakir, Sheikh Zahid al-Kawthari, and many others. So this is basically well, I try to make it as short as possible. Timeline of scholars which you might have heard of, so you can actually put them onto the timeline and think, right, I'm over here and they're over there. This is how far we actually are in history. So I hope that was helpful. Hopefully in the future I can make some more videos and focus more on specific eras. So maybe I can focus on a series of eras I can do. Jazakumullah khair. If you have any comments, suggestions, questions, please leave them in the comments. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.